Cultivating gratitude and compassion helps us to forgive. Being unforgiving or not being grateful can create all kinds of emotional distress. It's like an emotional prison, really, that blocks our own ability to grow, our own ability to connect to ourselves. Once we are in a consciousness of being grateful, a door unlocks, and it opens in us, and we are released from emotional, mental, and spiritual bondage. In essence, a past transgression or distress situation can be transformed in how we respond through the acts of forgiveness and gratitude. That's revolutionary. Eric Butterworth once said in one of his sermons, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing because this was about 25 years ago that I heard it, but I in service, I wrote down almost everything he ever said. I was always there with a pad and pencil, so I still have all those notes going back 30-some years. He said, though, gratitude is not just a reactionary emotion. Something happens and you give thanks for it. But giving thanks is a causative energy, lifting you to a higher level of consciousness. That phrase reminded me of another time when Jesus was called to save his friend Lazarus, but he arrived after Lazarus had been dead for 3 days and laying in the tomb. In the story, Jesus asks that the tomb be opened. But before the miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead, Jesus, in John 11, verse 41, says, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." He then calls Lazarus, and Lazarus comes forth. We can get so analytical about the Bible, Did this really happen? Or those stories are different in different chapters, they contradict each other, or this part was translated incorrectly, and on and on and on and on and on, that we miss the fundamental meaning hidden in these stories for us, for our growth, for our evolution. This proclamation Jesus gives of thank you may be the most crucial moment and lesson in the story. I think Jesus wasn't giving thanks for something, but from a consciousness of thankfulness. That's two different things. We all too easily and too often feel as if we don't have anything to give thanks for. But we always have something to give thanks from. That is what opens us to the receptive flow of abundance. Not the abundance of what we have or get, not even the abundance of what we give, but the abundance of who we truly are. The radiant magnitude of our being and presence. That is actually our abundance. This affirmation of our oneness with the omnipotent spirit of our being creates a channel through which our abundance flows. Jesus knew from his Christ consciousness that the key to this power is acknowledging the availability of this power, which is why he said thank you before it happened. Learning to be grateful is about much more than just our immediate circumstance. You can't let what's going on in your life determine the level of thanksgiving in your life. Instead, let your thankfulness spring from a deep understanding, an awakened wisdom, a oneness of spirit. The last days of my mother's life were so beautiful in a way. It was a tender and quiet time. There was a wholeness about it. She had told me 2 weeks before that she had been here long enough and it was time to go. I tried to take that without any emotional face there, but I understood. She started her transition really on her own terms, much like she did everything else, as many of you know. I rarely left her side, actually, those last 2 weeks. And actually, I was laying next to her when she passed. She had refused food and water those last 2 weeks so that her body could, I guess, settle and she could go. She kind of knew what she wanted to do and how she wanted to do it, as always. There were times when I would pat her lips with a wet sponge of water to keep her lips moist. As I followed the contours of her lips, I remember watching her meticulously put lipstick on her lips when I was a little boy, when I was a teenager, when I was a college student, when I was an older man. That memory of the dark lipstick was so present as I wet her lips. And I also remember her hands taking my face and kissing my face all over when I was a little boy, when I was a teenager, when I was a college student, when I was an older man. In fact, just a week prior, she had done just that. While doing this motion, I realized this was the first time I had actually touched her lips with my hands. My caress was sort of like a thanking her lips for all those kisses and saying goodbye. It was truly a coming full circle in gratitude moment. It was a blessed moment, one that fills me full of thankfulness every time I think of it. That lesson of gratitude opened me even further and deeper into the consciousness of oneness.